Hello and welcome to Cheshire Audio. Now, beside me, I've got a Rega Planet CD player. I'll do a talk around it in a bit, and we'll sort of show you a few of the sort of quirky features that it's got. I actually think that this is one of the most significant CD players ever made, and I'll justify that as we go. You kind of got to go back into the history of CD a little bit, really. What was it, 82, I think Philips had sort of players to show the press, and they're sort of trying to big up the format, really. Actually, I think official launch with Philips, certainly in the UK, was 84. But by that time, I think it had been in the press, it had been on Tomorrow's World, it had been in all the sort of science journals and all this sort of thing about this is perfect sound, it's digital, there's no losses involved. I remember Tomorrow's World spreading jam on a CD and it still played, which I still don't get. I mean, sometimes a fingerprint will stop them playing. So how they managed to do that, I don't know. Whether it was rigged, I'm cynical me. But yeah, there was all this sort of hype about it. Not from the audiophile press, it was all from the national press, really. So the people in the mainstream were ditching the sort of vinyl format massively. It was just, oh, that's the old stuff, that crackles, I don't like it. Oh, look, I can select tracks, I can shuffle play. And this original sort of belief that it was perfect sound stopped any sort of real growth quality-wise as well, because the manufacturers just wanted to get a player out. They weren't really bothered about the sound quality of these things. They needed to be on the bandwagon, they needed to do it now. And the belief is that they all sound the same, so we don't need to try, just as long as it reads a disc, who cares? And everybody was in on it, really, in the mainstream. So we had the Akai's and the Iowas and the JVCs, Sony players, very early with Sony, Philips Rance, Rotel, quite early days as well. A lot of the sort of higher end manufacturers kind of stepped back, really, and I think that certainly the audiophile type brands, the Lindheim Regas that were sort of the main ones to the fore at the time, kept away from it. The only one who sort of dibbed in early on was Meridian. And I think they were the first to really prove that you can make the players sound better. And they took Philips players, I think Philips CD 100 players, and created the MCD, which was a better audio stage or whatever, and then the MCD Pro, which had a better power supply on it and all this sort of thing. So they started to realise that actually perhaps there is a little bit more going on. Perhaps there is light at the end of the tunnel for the audiophile market. But like I say, the big three kept away from it. And Rega particularly was saying, until we can produce a player that we like the sound of, we're not doing it. We're not going to get involved with it. We're not just jumping on it just to make sales. That's not Rega. That's not the way we work. And it took until 1997, so almost kind of 15 years after CD was talked about, before Rega actually produced the Rega Planet, which is what we have in front of us. So let's have a walk around it. I mean, the main thing about the Planet when it came out was, I mean, until that point, I hadn't heard a CD player that I actually liked at all, really. So yeah, let's have a look around it. On that note, let's have a look around. Okay, so Rega Planet, bit of a quirky looking thing, to be honest. I remember when it came out thinking, whoa, yeah, this is a bit different. It's still using the clamshell design that the original Brio and the original LX and the original Illicit used. It's much heavier than it looks actually. It's two cast pieces with very, very sort of strong grooves in there for heat dissipation. I mean, it's not, obviously the CD player, it's not needed, but with something with the old Illicit amp, which used to get particularly hot, this was great. So it used to dissipate through the casework. Then there's like a interchangeable front panel on there for whether it's an amplifier, CD player, or which model of amplifier it is that just clicks into that outer casework. CD player is slightly different, obviously, on the top because we've got a left-hand door mechanism on it. All subsequent Regas were central. The Planet is the only one which is sort of offset like that. And you'll notice on the top there, this piece here, which is the actual puck, I mean, it's a similar idea to name, but I'll explain in a minute why it isn't quite the same as name. The little design on the top there relates back to the original Rega record player. Before it was Planar, it was Planet. So the very first Rega turntable was called the Planet, and it had a platter that looked like this. I've had them on the channel before, so if you look back, there are sort of videos of planets and things on the channel. So yeah, that's a bit of a hark back to the original record player and using the same name. So first record player was a Planet, first CD player was a Planet, which I think is quite a nice touch, really. Power on, very 80s-y looking display panel on it, really, very simple, straightforward looking thing. And just 4 buttons on there. We've got play, stop, backwards, forwards. No remote, very basic. And when you look at the buttons, actually they're just basically little micro switches. They look like a big button, but it's just a tiny little micro switch in the middle there, which is kind of all you need, really. You don't need any complicated front panels with fancy buttons on, really. To play a disc, let's get a bit of John Martin. Just lift up the door. Obviously can't do this on film at the same time. So with the Planet, you just drop the disc on. Later players from Rega have 3 little ball bearings and you push it on and it locks in. But the difference here is the Planet does have a puck like a name player does, but it's actually incorporated into the lid. Here we've got a bit of acrylic and it's actually sandwiched between, so it sort of sits within a space there. So when you drop the lid down, it locks in, spins up the disc, reads the information. There we go. And it does work really well. I think the only slight issues we ever had with these was some of the early players. This acrylic wasn't mounted in securely. It was within a little groove and it had a bit of tolerance to it. It would move slightly. And what would sometimes happen is if you had a disc which was a bit offset, you would get side-to-side movement of the puck following the disc, and it'd catch, and you get like a sort of noise from the puck. And I remember talking to customers over the phone and saying, look, what you need to do is, if you lift it up and you get your fingers either side of the perspex there and just move it around to centralise it. It must have been knocked to the side or whatever. Just centralise it and it'll be fine. But quite quickly after that, they redesigned this part slightly, and it's permanently fixed now. It doesn't move anywhere. But the very first ones, there was a bit of movement in it. Probably the only quirk with these at all, to be honest. I remember them being extremely reliable. And like I say, I think the main thing with these was it was the first CD player that I actually could enjoy listening to. It sounds like a bit of a put down, but I would actually compare the Planet to like a budget record player. If you can imagine a belt drive Technics or one of the cheaper Jewels or something like that, it sounded more like that. I mean, it obviously wasn't as good as Rega 2 or 3 record player, but it did have that sort of natural sort of that sort of interest in the music that you kept you listening. Because I used to find, or still find, if you listen to some of the early players, after halfway through a track, I'm bored of it, and it's grating and it's not interesting and it's not making me want to listen to any more music, really. Whereas this one did. I think the Planet was the first player that actually could hold your attention and make you appreciate the music on the disc. Now, technically what they did, I've no idea. I think it was just a bit of an attention to detail. I'm not one who believes in sort of different chipsets and all this sort of thing. I think there's more to it than that. I mean, you'll see on forums people going on about Burr Brown and all these different chipsets that are supposed to be wonderful, but at the end of the day, I think it's a combination of things with players, really, that they have to get right. And there's not many manufacturers. Even now, there's not that many manufacturers of CD players that seem to have got that magic combination right. Really, I think Rega is one of the few sort of more budget players. That was interesting. Why did I do that? This is in for repair, actually. This is actually in for repair. Now, it says something. This player could be 26 years old. I thought I might be able to sort it out. It plays for a while and then it just drops out. It just stops. I thought I knew what was wrong with it. I've had a bit of a play with it and I've not got anywhere. So it's going back to Rega. Rega are totally happy to look at it. I mean, there's not many manufacturers who would still look after products that are that early, really. Very keen to have a look at it, see what's going on with it. A few suggestions as to what they think's wrong. Nothing major. Oh yeah, we'll sort that, don't worry. So, oh, that's interesting. Keeps reading. Yeah, actually, funny, after the conversation with Rega, that makes sense that it's doing that. We've got live faults going on here. I might just wait a bit to see if it does it again. Yeah, it keeps reading the top, doesn't it? Oh, interesting. Yeah, yeah. We don't think it's the transport on this. Transports are available for these actually, but I think they're basically reconditioned front ends now. They're not. There's no new ones left, but Rega are sort of reconditioning them and putting them back out as spares and things. So rather than just saying, "Oh, sorry, we don't support that anymore," which seems to be the thing you hear a lot from manufacturers now, even some quite big names that you would have thought more of really, but no, Rega are very keen to have a look at this and get it sorted. So basically just wanted to do a quick video of it, explain why I think it's wonderful, and then get it boxed up and get it off really. So yeah, there we are. Yeah, so the Rega Planet, like I say, I still think really significant player. I think it did move things on massively when it came out. Certainly from an enjoyment of your music point of view. I mean, it was certainly the first player that I could sit down and listen to for an evening and really get into. So anyway, I'll leave it there. Need to get this boxed up, get it sent back. I'll see you in a future video. Don't forget to give a subscribe and a like. And I am going to do the cartridge cozy chat. Don't worry, that's coming. Okay, see you soon. Thanks very much.